April 15th, 2011, 8:42 a.m. Eastern Time. Tens of thousands of poker players around the world refresh their browsers and stop breathing. The screens that once showed avatars, chips, and tournament lobbies now display the same message in cold blue text on a white background. A notice of seizure issued by the Department of Justice, United States of America. Bankrolls vanish, tables freeze mid-hand. For the first time in the modern era, the game of poker simply stops. In apartments, dorm rooms, and office cubicles across the globe, professional players stare at their monitors, not believing what they're seeing. For years, they had lived inside a dream, a digital gold rush built on cards, courage, and math. And now, with a single morning knock, it's over. 8 years earlier, the story had begun with laughter. A quiet accountant from Tennessee, an amateur with a $39 online ticket, had walked into Las Vegas and humiliated the world's best. Casinos laughed when they saw him sit down, but by the time he stood up, he had changed poker forever. What followed was a revolution, a billion-dollar boom built by underdogs, fueled by television, and powered by the internet. It would transform basement hobbyists into millionaires, and millionaires into legends, until greed, arrogance, and a government deadline destroyed it all. This is the story of the poker boom, how a $39 amateur built an empire that reached every screen in the world, and how, on one quiet Friday morning, it all disappeared. June 2003, Las Vegas, Nevada. Inside Binion's Horseshoe, the air is thick with cigarette smoke and disbelief. At the final table of the World Series of Poker main event sits a man no one recognizes, a 27-year-old accountant from Tennessee, wearing an old cap and a nervous smile. His name is Chris Moneymaker. To the poker elite surrounding him, he looks out of place, just another dreamer hoping luck might outweigh experience. But what they don't know is that he didn't buy his seat, he won it, through an internet satellite on a site few professionals took seriously, a $39 ticket, a ticket that would soon rewrite poker history. 3 years earlier, online poker barely existed. Small websites like Planet Poker and Paradise Poker hosted pixelated tables that crashed as often as they paid. Deposit methods involved mailing checks to Costa Rica, and withdrawals required trust in strangers on forums. The idea that real money could move through a website felt absurd. Casinos dismissed it. Players mocked it. Even within poker, it was seen as a toy for amateurs, a place for people too scared to face the felt. But in hidden corners of the internet, a new generation was learning faster than any live pro could imagine. They weren't reading faces. They were reading patterns. They weren't bluffing with gut. They were bluffing with data. And among them was an accountant from Tennessee who had never played a live tournament in his life. The 2003 World Series drew 839 players, a record at the time, fueled quietly by the rise of online qualifiers. Most came with backers, coaches, and reputations. Moneymaker came with a borrowed name, a lucky alias generated by poker stars when he registered his account. Even his last name sounded fake. The pros laughed at that too. When the cards hit the felt, he played like someone who didn't know the rules, or like someone who didn't know he was supposed to lose. Every call seemed reckless, every bluff naive. But behind that awkward exterior hid a simple truth. He wasn't carrying the weight of expectation. He was just playing cards. By the third day, the laughter began to fade. One by one, seasoned professionals fell to the man they dismissed as a fluke. Phil Ivey, busted. Dutch Boyd, busted. Dan Harrington, watching from the rail as the amateur climbed the chip counts. And then came the hand, the one that would echo through poker history. Heads up against veteran pro Sam Farha, the accountant held nothing but air. Farha's stare was ice. Moneymaker looked back, heartbeat steady, hands trembling just enough to look honest. He shoved all in. Farha thought for a long moment, and folded. The bluff was over. The miracle wasn't. Minutes later, the amateur held the bracelet above his head, $2.5 million in winnings, and the loudest roar Binions had ever heard. Across the world, millions watched the moment on ESPN. For the first time, the cameras showed the whole cards. Viewers could see the bluff, feel the heartbeat, and believe the impossible. A man who started online with $39 and a dream had beaten Vegas at its own game. They called it the Moneymaker Effect. Within months, poker tables filled faster than casinos could open them. Online rooms crashed under demand, and that $39 ticket, the one nobody respected, became the symbol of a new era. They laughed when he sat down, the narration could say, but when he stood up, he took the whole game with him. February 2004. Just 8 months after Chris Moneymaker's victory, Poker isn't a game anymore. It's an outbreak. Casinos that once mocked online players are building TV studios, cable networks are buying time slots, and millions of people who had never touched a deck of cards are logging in, hoping lightning might strike twice. What began with a $39 ticket has become a cultural fever, and everyone, from Wall Street investors to college students, wants a seat at the table. The revolution came through a lens. For the first time in history, audiences could see what poker players were hiding. The whole card camera, a small innovation first tested in Britain, turned invisible decisions into visible drama. Every bluff became theater, every mistake public. The slow, smoky game played in back rooms suddenly looked like a sport. On ESPN, announcers spoke like historians in real time. They named hands, narrated bets, built tension. When a player folded kings, the crowd gasped as if watching a missed penalty shot. When a bluff worked, it felt like scoring in overtime. Poker wasn't about cards anymore. It was about story. In living rooms across America, Moneymaker's win replayed on loop. Parents told their kids, "You can actually do this," and college students believed them. By 2004, the World Series of Poker had tripled in size. By 2005, it had quadrupled. The game was no longer for professionals. It belonged to the dreamers. Online, it was chaos and gold. Poker rooms like Poker Stars, Full Tilt, and Party Poker became digital empires. Every night, tens of thousands of players filled virtual tables. The sound of chips and card flips echoed through dorm rooms around the world. Forums exploded with strategy posts and bad beat stories. Affiliate marketers made fortunes convincing others to sign up. And for the first time, ordinary players could earn a living without ever leaving home. $50 deposits turned into bankrolls. Rakeback became a word every player knew. And on two-screen setups glowing in the dark, young grinders were building careers their parents didn't understand. At the top, the professionals adapted fast. They traded smoky casinos for multi-monitor setups. They wore headsets instead of sunglasses. The poker world was splitting in two, old school field players and the new data-driven generation. But both sides were making money faster than ever before. Companies hired celebrities to wear logos. Tournaments doubled their guarantees. Airlines filled with players flying to Vegas every summer, all chasing the same dream Moneymaker had made real. By 2006, poker had gone mainstream. MTV ran poker specials. High-stakes poker brought million-dollar pots to prime time. And Las Vegas was no longer the only stage. It was just one chapter in an endless global story. The internet had done what no casino ever could. It made poker infinite. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, the tables never stopped. It felt unstoppable, too big to fail, too modern to ever die. But every boom has its shadow, and while players counted winnings, politicians were counting votes. That same year, buried deep inside a last-minute U.S. port security bill, a few pages of new legislation quietly passed through Congress. It was called the Unlawful Internet Gambling Enforcement Act. Most ignored it. It was vague, small, technical, the kind of law no one reads until it's too late. But hidden inside, it held a single line that would one day end the golden age of poker. A line that said, "No financial institution may process transactions related to unlawful internet gambling." The industry shrugged. Sites found new processors, players kept playing, but deep inside the system, the clock had started ticking. No one could hear it yet, but it was there, a quiet countdown to the morning poker would disappear. January 2007, a new type of poker player is born. They don't wear sunglasses or lucky hoodies or gold bracelets. They wear headphones, and they play 8 tables at once. Across the world, bedrooms and dorm rooms become command centers. LED lights replace casino chandeliers, and the shuffle of cards is replaced by the sound of clicking mice. These are the grinders, a generation raised not on tells, but on data. They don't care who they're playing. They only care about the numbers. The era of feel is over. Poker has gone scientific. Software called HUDs, heads-up displays, track every hand, every bet, every pattern. Players see more than cards. They see probabilities. They can tell how often you bluff, how often you fold, how often you break. And the best of them, the true prodigies, use this ocean of data to print money. Every hand becomes a math problem, every opponent a formula. The romantic image of smoky casinos fades, replaced by glowing screens and graphs trending upward. They play 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. Hundreds of hands per hour, thousands per day, millions per year. Experience that used to take decades now happens before graduation. They don't read books, they write code. They build solvers, simulators, and spreadsheets that analyze every decision. To the old guard, it looks like chaos. To the new generation, it's precision, and the results are impossible to ignore. Teenagers become millionaires before they can legally enter a casino. Players known only by screen names, Purr, Isildur 1, OMG Clay Aiken, become legends in chat boxes. Their battleground isn't Las Vegas, it's the digital high-stakes tables, where blinds are $500/$1,000 and pots can reach a house's worth in seconds. The railbirds, the online spectators, watch it all unfold live. Forums light up with every massive pot. Histories of hands are dissected like sacred texts. Durer bluffed Isildur again. Blom lost $5 million in 2 weeks. Someone just won $800,000 with ace high. These aren't just poker games anymore. They're gladiator fights, streamed in code, and for the players, it's an addiction that feels like destiny. But behind the highlight reels, something else is happening. The money that floods in through these platforms has to move somewhere. And as players cash out millions, governments begin to notice. Payment processors hide transactions under fake names. Banks turn a blind eye. And offshore accounts multiply. The entire system runs on trust and denial. The pros tell themselves it's fine. The sites tell them everything's legal, and the fans keep watching because the show is too good to end. By 2009, poker is at its peak. Full Tilt Poker sponsors athletes. Poker Stars hosts tournaments that pay more than movie deals. Everyone has a patch on their arm and a contract in their inbox. Poker isn't counterculture anymore. It is the culture. But beneath the luxury, cracks begin to form. Accounts go missing, payment processors vanish, and some players begin to whisper, what if the money we see on the screen isn't really there? For 6 years, poker had been a rocket with no brakes, but every rocket runs out of fuel, and this one was heading straight for 2011, the year the laughter would stop. November 2010. The poker world looks untouchable. Television ratings are steady, online rooms are booming again, and the game that started with a $39 dream now runs on billions. But behind the lights, something doesn't add up. The same hands that deal cards are moving money. And not everyone knows where it's going. Players keep winning, but the sites keep paying out faster than they bring money in. Bonuses pile up, rakeback deals spiral out of control, and everyone's chasing growth that never stops. The poker sites have become banks, but unlike real banks, there's no insurance, no oversight, no rules. Player balances, hundreds of millions of dollars, sit in offshore accounts, invisible to the public. The industry runs on one fragile belief, that the money is there. Meanwhile, the United States government is getting impatient. The 2006 law, the one no one cared about, has finally reached its expiration date. Federal agents have spent years quietly tracking payment processors, shell companies, and credit card disguises. They've mapped out the pipelines that move billions through fake golf club purchases and digital consulting fees. And now the investigations are closing in. In poker chat boxes, rumors begin to spread. Players whisper about frozen transfers and delayed withdrawals. Some payments bounce back. Some processors disappear overnight. At Full Tilt Poker, one of the biggest rooms on earth, insiders notice numbers that don't match. Player funds mixed with company funds, a gap no one wants to talk about. Tens of millions unaccounted for. But no one outside the boardroom knows the truth. In February 2011, a few journalists start asking questions. A legal blog posts a small headline, Federal probe into online poker payment systems confirmed. It barely trends. The forums laugh it off. The games go on. But for the men running the world's largest poker sites, that headline lands like a countdown timer. They know the investigations are real. They know indictments are coming. The only question is when. And while the players keep grinding, the companies keep pretending. Sponsorships continue. Tournaments go live. The poker dream keeps its smile, even as the floorboards creak beneath it. A storm is coming, silent and invisible. Every dollar in the system sits on borrowed time, and when the first domino falls, it won't be a single player or a single site. It will be the entire industry. April 2011 is only weeks away, and for the first time since the boom began, the laughter in poker feels nervous. The empire that started with a $39 miracle is about to meet reality, and reality doesn't bluff. April 15th, 2011, 7:45 a.m. Eastern Time. Thousands of poker players wake up, open their laptops, and find their screens replaced with a seal, the American flag, an eagle, and words no one in the game will ever forget. This domain name has been seized by the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation. For the first time in poker's modern history, the game stops. At first, people think it's a glitch, maybe a server error, maybe maintenance. But as screenshots spread through forums, panic turns into silence. The biggest poker sites in the world, PokerStars, Full Tilt Poker, Ultimate Bet, are gone. Player balances, gone. Pending cash outs, frozen. Entire bankrolls, built over years, locked behind a legal notice. It doesn't matter if you were a beginner or a millionaire. In that moment, every player lost something. On 2plus2, the biggest poker forum, threads explode by the second. Anyone else getting this error? My account just disappeared. Guys, is this real? It's real. The Department of Justice has unsealed indictments against the owners of the three biggest poker sites in the world. Bank fraud, money laundering, illegal gambling operations, 40 pages that effectively end the online poker boom overnight. The law that everyone ignored in 2006 has finally come for its debt. In New York City, federal agents raid payment processors. In Dublin, servers go dark. In offices from Costa Rica to the Isle of Man, employees are told not to log in again. And in living rooms across America, professional players stare at their screens, realizing their careers are gone. Some have 6 figures stuck online. Some have 7. A few are down to their last few $100s. And now, even that's unreachable. The chat boxes that once buzzed with life are silent. Avatars frozen mid-hand, as if the entire world just blinked. The news spreads beyond poker. CNN, Reuters, Bloomberg, all run the same headline. Federal government shuts down online poker. The same channels that once showed million-dollar pots are now showing mugshots and legal charts. To the outside world, it looks like justice. To the poker world, it feels like betrayal. At Full Tilt, the damage is far worse than anyone expected. The site doesn't just have frozen funds. It doesn't have the money at all. Player deposits had been mixed with operating funds spent on marketing, sponsorships, and executive payouts. Millions owed, with no way to pay them back. The poker world's biggest brand is suddenly a ghost. The pros who wore its patch now face the cameras in silence. Howard Lederer, Chris Ferguson, Eric Seidel, names once associated with genius, now whispered with disbelief. The house everyone trusted was built on sand. In the weeks that follow, players scatter. Some move to Mexico or Canada to keep playing. Others quit entirely. The dream that began with a $39 online ticket has ended with an entire industry under federal lock. The laughter that once filled poker rooms is gone. The interviews stop. The money stops. Even the optimism stops. What's left is a single question, whispered in chat rooms and headlines alike. Will online poker ever come back? For 8 years, poker had felt untouchable. Now it was radioactive. But in the shadows of Black Friday, a few people are already planning the comeback. Players, lawyers, programmers, and one company that refuses to die. Summer 2011. The world's poker tables are empty. Websites that once handled billions are offline. For the first time in a decade, the cards aren't being dealt. The poker boom is over, but the story isn't. In the months following Black Friday, the wreckage begins to surface. The Department of Justice releases new details. The largest poker sites in the world didn't just break laws, they broke trust. Full Tilt Poker, once the crown jewel of the industry, is revealed to have a hole of over $300 million in player funds. Money that was supposed to be held in safekeeping, gone. Sponsorships, bonuses, executive payouts, paid using player balances. It's not just a scandal, it's a betrayal. Poker forums turn into war zones. Names that once commanded respect, Lederer, Ferguson, Baitar, become symbols of greed. Players who idolized them now want answers. Interviews vanish. Apologies never come. For thousands of professionals, life changes overnight. Bankrolls locked, mortgages missed. Some players take second jobs, some move abroad to rebuild, and some simply disappear. The golden generation of online poker, the kids who thought the game would last forever, are now stranded in a digital no man's land. Meanwhile, the one company that survived, PokerStars, begins negotiating. Unlike its competitors, it had kept player funds separate. Its books are clean, and its executives know that reputation in poker is everything. In 2012, PokerStars reaches a historic settlement with the U.S. Department of Justice. They agree to pay $731 million, part fine, part restitution. They buy out full tilt, repay every player, and promise to clean up the wreckage. It's not a government rescue. It's one company salvaging an entire industry. Slowly, balances return. Old accounts unlock. Players who thought they'd lost everything refresh their screens to find zeros replaced by numbers again. It isn't triumph, it's relief. And for the first time in a long time, the community feels something that almost resembles hope. The years that follow are quiet. Live poker grows again. The World Series of Poker breaks records in attendance, a strange twist in a world where online poker has been banned. The dream survives, but it's changed. The forums talk less about fame, more about regulation. New words enter the poker vocabulary: compliance, transparency, segregation of funds. The chaos of the boom is gone. In its place is structure and scars. For the grinders who stayed, poker becomes personal again. Not a global spectacle, not a rush for millions. Just a skill, a craft, something you do because you love it. But for everyone who lived through those years, the rise, the money, the crash, one thought remains. Poker didn't die. It just woke up. And somewhere in the noise of rebuilt servers and regulated tables, the echo of that $39 ticket still lingers. The reminder of how far a single hand can go, and how easily it can all vanish. June 2014, Las Vegas, the World Series of Poker. Main event begins once again. 11 years after Chris Moneymaker's miracle run, the stage looks different. Brighter, louder, richer. But somewhere in the crowd, there's always someone chasing that same impossible dream. A cheap buy-in, a deep run, a miracle. Online poker never truly died. It just scattered. Europe, Canada, Latin America, all kept the fire burning. New countries joined in. New names rose. And the same dream that once belonged to an accountant from Tennessee now belonged to millions around the world. But the landscape had changed. Regulation replaced rebellion. Solvers replaced superstition. And the game that once rewarded instinct now demands precision. Poker had grown up. So had the people who played it. The new generation doesn't remember the boom. They were kids when it happened. To them, poker isn't a miracle. It's a math problem. They study ranges, run simulations, memorize GTO charts. They don't play 10 tables. They run databases. They don't call it gambling. They call it decision theory. And yet, behind all the data, the story remains the same. The cards change, the tools evolve, but the feeling, the heart-pounding, world-stopping moment when you push all in, that's still the same. The survivors of the boom are scattered too. Some are still grinding online, under regulated markets and smaller guarantees. Some coach, some stream, some trade stocks instead of bluffs, and some, quietly, without fame or glory, still log in every night, chasing that perfect hand. The boom made poker global. Black Friday made it human. And together, they wrote the longest story the game has ever told. In documentaries and interviews, Chris Moneymaker still smiles when people ask if he got lucky. He says he did. But luck alone doesn't explain what happened. Luck doesn't explain an industry worth billions, or a world united by a deck of cards. Luck doesn't explain why, 20 years later, we still talk about that $39 ticket. Because it wasn't just a ticket, it was a spark, a reminder that, for a brief moment, poker wasn't about math or money or fame. It was about the idea that anyone could win. Today, the game lives on, in new forms, on new screens, under new rules. There are no more million-dollar free rolls, no more unchecked empires, no more blind faith in offshore accounts. But somewhere, right now, a young player is staring at their screen, entering their first $11 satellite. And whether they know it or not, they're chasing the same dream. April 15th, 2011 was the day poker died. But June 2003 was the day it was reborn. One ended an era. The other created a legend. Casinos laughed at a $39 amateur. He didn't just change the game. He changed everything.